Hi everybody, welcome to video number 17 in the Richard Laymon horror novel review series. Today I'm talking about Body Rides from 1996. The cover art is there by Steve Crisp. It's a good one, very bright and vivid, unusual for a Laymon book to have some sunlight in there. The spine, this is a long book at 501 pages of very kind of close type. And here's the back, which I'll read. It says, "Ever since the LA riots, Neil has carried a pistol in his car. And tonight he needs it. He shoots a man assaulting a woman tied naked to a tree by the freeway. As a reward, Elise gives Neil a magic bracelet that enables him to step inside other people, to see through their eyes and experience their feelings, to take body rides. Neil returns to check on the man he shot. But the man is not dead. He's alive and breathing vengeance. First, he's going to finish the job on Elise, and then he's going to butcher Neil. But this time, with the help of the bracelet, Neil can look inside his would-be killer's skull." Alright, so this book is every bit as silly as that synopsis makes it sound. It's about a magic bracelet that enables the wearer to come out of his body, slip into another person's body, and experience the world through them. You see what they see, you feel what they feel, you think what they think. They don't know you're inside of them, but you can have access to everything it means to experience the world from the perspective of another person. And the first thing I want to say about this book is that it's too long. This is about 200 pages too long. Somewhere inside this 500-page novel is a fantastic, funny 300-page story. So the way I'm going to do this little review is I'm going to divide it into the negatives and the positives. And the negatives is going to involve talking about why I think this didn't need to be 500 pages. And that boils down to the characterization. This is some of Laymon's very worst characterization, and it's also the book that contains the most gratuitous descriptions of sex. This was so tiresome. There were moments in this book where I was literally rolling my eyes because it seems like he can't go 10 pages without devoting 5 pages to describing... it looks like Laymon very obviously had a kind of breast fixation, and more specifically a nipple fixation. There are anatomy textbooks with fewer descriptions of breasts and nipples than Body Rides has. And after a while, from page 1, it gets really, really tiresome. So if you were to cut out all of his descriptions of breasts and nipples, then you would immediately cut off about 100 pages of the book. The other 100 that could go is the very tiresome, again, descriptions of this relationship that develops between Neil and this young woman who he picks up called Sue. So what basically happens here is Neil rescues this woman at the beginning of the book. Her name is Elise. She's very wealthy. And as a reward for rescuing her, she gives him this bracelet, which is in the shape of a snake. And if you close your eyes and kiss the head of the snake on the bracelet, you rise up out your body, you can take this body ride thing. But one way or another, at the beginning of the book, so this isn't really a spoiler, Elise does end up being killed. And this killer now is after Neil. And so, Neil decides to skip. Neil has a girlfriend called Marta, the most forgiving girlfriend in the world, because Neil is constantly, instantly falling in love with every woman he comes across and telling her about it. He just tells his girlfriend, "I think I'm in love with this girl." She just goes along with it all. And so Neil then decides to skip town and leave Marta behind. And on the way to Nevada, which is where he's going to hang out for a while, he stops off at a cafe. His waitress comes along. His waitress is Sue. She serves him breakfast. They fall in love. You know, they've really built a good foundation there. And so they go off together. She quits her job. She quits the town. She just imposes herself onto him and gets into his car, and off they ride. By the end of that day, they're in love and having sex and all this stuff. And there's like a 70-page sequence in this book where they're at the amusement park and we are following their relationship. And it's just really silly because, like, just to repeat, the 3 main characters, we've got Neil, who's the guy, 26 years old. Marta, who's his age, I suppose, his girlfriend. And Sue, who's an 18-year-old bumpkin. And Neil and Sue, so they're in this amusement park, and nothing really matters in this relationship as you're reading it because it's all so random and unreal. Sue tells a bizarre story about she's a little bit standoffish towards men, because when she was 12 years old, this is the story she tells. When she was 12 years old, she asked 5 of her school friends to violently have sex with her on the floor of the school toilet. And from that day to this, she's never had sex with anyone because it scarred her so much. And Neil will be the first one. Now, many questions to ask here. Firstly, why on earth did Laymon think that needed to be a backstory? Secondly, all right, she's very standoffish because of that events which she asked to happen. But she's also taken her clothes off at every opportunity and teasing Neil and kind of tempting him and all this stuff. I mean, she strips off in the middle of a ghost train attraction in the amusement park. She starts to get frisky with him on a roller coaster. It's just ridiculous. And then we have the character of Marta, his main girlfriend, who, like I said, every time Neil tells her that I've fallen in love with Elise, now I've fallen in love with Sue, she just kind of goes along with it, even though she seems to be a bit put out. And the way Laymon gets around that is it turns out Marta is bisexual. She's hiding a secret that she's bisexual. So they then fall into a threesome arrangement, Neil, Sue, and Marta, which, if 1996, maybe not the PC times we live in, but there are all kinds of problematic implications there with that little character reveal. It's kind of the suggestion that bisexual or homosexual people are raging nymphomaniacs and promiscuous who will go along with a threesome situation just like that. Because up to this point, she's been constantly telling Neil that she desperately loves him. Neil's been telling her that he loves Marta. But as always with Laymon, it just all gets stripped away and comes down to just sex, so he can describe sex. And there are enormous amounts of description of sex in this book. So that is the main drawback of this. And another thing about Marta, it turns out she's pregnant at the end. She's been pregnant since the start. But almost every time we meet her, she's drinking vodka tonics and martinis and beer. She's just endlessly drinking all the time. Again, 1996, I think that she would know better than that. And it's just another character detail which it's like Laymon has never met a human being. Neil is 26 years old. He takes body rides, and one of the women he goes into is this young woman called Karen, and he's watching her in her own body undress. Excuse me. And the things he's saying, it's like, wow, I can't believe it. This is so amazing. All he's doing here is watching her breasts in a mirror. And I'm thinking, Neil, you're a 26-year-old man. You're in a sexual relationship. Why are you behaving like a 12-year-old boy? Have you never seen breasts before? And it's indicative of how in Richard Laymon, any male character behaves like a horny teenager. And in a 500-page book, it gets so tiresome after a while. It really does. If I wasn't doing this review of all of his novels, there's a high chance I might have actually given up on this one around the 300-page mark. I couldn't take another description of a nipple. So that's what's wrong with the book. The characterization is absolutely dreadful. But I did actually like this book. That's part where I said I almost gave up. It was brief, and the finale is pretty good. And the story is just so funny. I think this book works if you think of it as a fairy tale, as a kind of very violent, dark fairy tale. Nothing about it can be taken the slightest bit seriously. The beginning is ridiculous, the middle is ludicrous, and the end is one of the silliest things I've ever read in my life. But it's one of those times when you ask yourself, what do you go to Richard Laymon for? You don't go to him for a realistic horror novel. You go to him just to have a good time. And with the caveats that I just mentioned about the characterization, I did actually have a good time with this, because the body rides that the guy takes are by turns funny and intriguing. He goes into one loser guy calling himself the Creeper, who stalks the night, but he's actually a bit of a geek. The Karen episode is kind of fun. And there's a reveal about Karen, which I didn't see coming. It's one of those shocking things which Laymon does sometimes. The moments where he's inside the killer are pretty fun to read. Like I said, if this was one of his earlier novels, if he'd written this in the early stage of his career, this would have been 300 pages, and it would have only been story. He wouldn't have bothered at all with any of the characterization, and I think it would have worked better that way. But as it is, I do actually recommend it. This will be probably the stupidest book you'll ever read in terms of, like I've just said, plot and characterization. But I do think you'll have a good time with it. It can be a bit of a slog in the middle section when they're in Nevada and we're watching this beautiful relationship blossom. That's another skin crawling thing. Laymon keeps going out of his way to describe this 18-year-old girl as being very childlike. He even calls her a kid on more than one occasion, and she comes across that way. The way that she speaks is babyish sometimes. The observations she makes are childlike. But he's kind of juxtaposing this with all this crazy sex stuff she's doing, and it's just one of those kind of icky things that sometimes appear in Laymon's books, which I'm really not a fan of. It's an odd one. It's a really strange one because, like I said, just before this book, he had come off a string of masterpieces, for him anyway, masterpieces, and then this came along. And I think he was starting to run out of steam a little bit, but I'm going to talk more about his running out of steam in the next review that I'm going to get on with immediately after this one. So I'm going to wrap this one up. Body Rise by Richard Laymon, 1996. A long-winded but fun read, which I recommend. All right, guys, thanks for watching this. If you did watch this far, I will be back very, very soon with a next review. So take care, and I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.